Covered more than 1,000 other reports of sexual harassment.
This is the World News from the BBC. The EU's energy chief has hailed a new agreement on sharing power from renewable sources, saying it will mean the continent can free itself from dependency on Russia. Energy ministers and other political leaders have gathered in Hamburg to sign the deal, which aims to encourage the building of offshore wind farms in the North Sea. 2 people have appeared in court in Slovakia accused of murdering a prominent journalist. Jan Kuciak was shot dead along with his girlfriend in 2018. He'd been investigating allegations of corrupt ties between politicians and leading business figures. Widespread protests in the wake of the killings led to Prime Minister Robert Fico resigning, although he since returned to power. Lawyers in Pakistan's Islamabad High Court have held a protest against the sentencing of 2 colleagues on charges of posting anti-state social media messages. Protesters carried banners reading "Justice for Lawyers." Iman Mazari and her husband Hadi Chatter deny the charges and say they're being persecuted for raising their voice against enforced disappearances of ethnic Baluch activists. New research has found that spider monkeys in Mexico possess a sophisticated social system and share insider knowledge about the best fruit trees in the forest. They seem to constantly change foraging groups. Here's Helena Berg.
Researchers from universities in Edinburgh and Mexico spent 7 years studying the behavior of black-handed spider monkeys in the Yucatan Peninsula. They observed that the large groups the primates live in split into smaller subgroups when searching for food, with different combinations of monkeys splitting off each time. Dr. Matthew Silk from the University of Edinburgh says these groups are a clever way of sharing knowledge about the locations of the best fruit trees. Some parts of the forest were known by many monkeys, like a town's favourite restaurant, while others were known by just 1 or 2, like a hidden gem.
BBC News.
Thank you. You're listening to the newsroom from the BBC World Service with Oliver Conway. It is rare for ex-US presidents to criticise their successors, but the death of a second person at the hands of government agents in Minneapolis has prompted 2 former American leaders to speak out. Bill Clinton called on people to stand up for their rights, while Barack Obama said masked ICE recruits had to stop using tactics that seem designed to intimidate, harass, provoke, and endanger citizens. The Trump administration has also been criticized for giving statements that appear to contradict video evidence. On Saturday, 37-year-old intensive care nurse Alex Pretty was shot dead by ICE agents while being held on the ground. The government claimed he'd used a gun to threaten them, but footage suggests he never drew his weapon, which he was licensed to carry, and was shot multiple times after an agent had taken it away. So, what do people in Minneapolis think? Tom Bateman has been speaking to locals.
We both marched on Friday, and now we're back because the people of Minneapolis are tired, very angry, and irate. I fear where it's going to go is war. I do, because this is domestic terrorism. We are being terrorized. These are things that have happened in the past when regimes have taken over a country. We are a nation divided. There's too many people still supporting this injustice, and so I'm afraid of war.
We're here, using our constitutional rights. The man who died had every constitutional right. They killed him. They took his gun first. They let their friend clear his body, and then they murdered him.
Well, the protests have remained largely peaceful. Cars coming past, honking horns, trying to show solidarity. A lot of fists raised in the air when they do that. But at the same time, you've had this escalating rhetoric between the Democrat-led city and state authorities here and the Trump administration in Washington, particularly doubling down over their account of the killing of Alex Pretty. They have maintained that he was going to carry out, in their view, an armed attack. They published pictures of what they said was his 9mm semi-automatic handgun. And we heard from Greg Bovino, who's Commander-at-Large of the Border Patrol, now a known figurehead on the streets, roaming with his agents. And he has suggested that people shouldn't come out and choose to do what they've been doing when they've been observing and filming these ICE agents here.
I would implore upon any individuals, whether they're anarchists, rioters, or anyone else that thinks it wise to go into a law enforcement scene to disrupt, to delay, is to don't do that.
At the same time, the Homeland Security Secretary, other parts of the administration, seeing what happened here as, in their view, domestic terrorism. Now, all of that has been totally rejected, both by the protesters, the Democrat authorities here, and Alex Pretty's family, who call that a lie and say they want the public to understand the truth about him. His dad is Michael Pretty.
He cared about people deeply, and he was very upset with what was happening in Minneapolis and throughout the United States with ICE, as millions of other people are upset.
It really feels like a standoff now between this Democrat city and the Trump administration. It represents a much wider story about the battle for contemporary America. A Trump administration that says it's delivering on its elected pledge to carry out a mass deportation campaign, accusing people here of inciting an insurrection. And the protesters and the Democrats here saying that they are seeing their city occupied by agents geared up more for war than carrying out immigration enforcement.
Tom Bateman in Minneapolis. Well, the two killings there have led to disquiet even among some Republicans, with midterm elections just 9 months away. The president himself appears to have softened his hard line on deploying ICE to the city, saying, at some point, we will leave. But are immigration officials being put in an impossible situation? Kevin Toohey is a former agent who spent 27 years at the Immigration Enforcement Agency. He criticized those taking to the streets in Minneapolis.
The governor of the state, Tim Walz, has stated to people, and of course the mayor, to go out there to record and get in their face, get in their business. And when law enforcement professionals are conducting operations, they do not need people around them, harassing them, bothering them, adding to their extra stress, okay? They're already worried about arresting this person. Is this person going to have a gun? Is this person going to fight me? But when you're surrounded by an additional 50 or 100 people yelling, blowing whistles at you, disrupting everything, that causes extra stress and additional factors to the arrest of that person. If he was a peaceful protester, what is he doing bringing a gun to a peaceful protest?
Former ICE agent Kevin Toohey. Well, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara said at a news conference that Alex Pretty was believed to be a lawful gun owner with a permit to carry. He also said the Department of Homeland Security had not provided his team with any specific details about the deadly incident. We got an update on the latest in Minneapolis from Thomas Lee, a journalist with the online site Azam News.
We're still seeing scattered protests as vigils for the victim of Saturday's shooting. We're also seeing some pushback finally emerging from Republicans, both in Congress and Minnesota and governors across the country, in terms of trying to get a handle on the situation and try to provide a little bit of oversight over ICE. And within the Twin Cities itself, we've seen extraordinary sort of action by the top business leaders in Minnesota. There's 19 Fortune 500 companies, and they've all issued a joint statement which they're calling for calm and for both sides to talk to each other. I've never seen that actually happen before, for all of them to be commenting on this social issue. So it's kind of a waiting game now to see what's going to happen next. The murder of Alex Pretty happened just less than 24 hours after that. Like 50,000 people marched through Minneapolis on Friday. It was also an economic boycott day on Friday to protest ICE. So Minnesotans are feeling pretty good about themselves. You know, they're saying, you know, look at all these people, and it felt like you have the momentum. So there was quite a bit of optimism in the air, but then to have this happen Saturday morning, it was crushing. And people are tired. They feel scared, anxious, but there's also a lot of still resilience to see this through, to protect the community. It's just been a huge emotional roller coaster. And for me, as a kind of a personal note, I am an Asian American. And so I feel now that I have to carry my passport now with me, just to be careful. And I've also purchased the gas mask as well. And those are two things that I thought I would never have to do in my life.
Thomas Lee from Assam News in Minneapolis. Other news now, and Israel says it will reopen the key Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt, but only after it's retrieved the body of the last remaining Israeli hostage in the territory. The crossing was due to have reopened during the first phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, agreed in October. Meanwhile, a case has been brought at Israel's Supreme Court over media access to Gaza. International journalists haven't been allowed to report freely from there for more than 2 years. Our Middle East correspondent Yolande Knell joined me from the court in Jerusalem and told me first about the Rafah crossing announcement.
This was a very carefully worded statement that came out late last night from the Israeli Prime Minister's office after what we understand was a heated cabinet meeting, and it announces the decision basically to reopen the Rafah crossing, this key border point between the Gaza Strip and Egypt, the Gaza Strip's only crossing point that doesn't go into Israel, but saying that that will be a limited reopening, that there will be a full Israeli inspection mechanism, and that this will happen upon completion of the latest search for Ran Gavili's body. Now, Ran Gavili is a 24-year-old police officer who was killed in the Hamas-led attacks on Israel on the 7th October 2023. He is the only remaining hostage still in the Gaza Strip. And we have been hearing from the Israeli military in the past day about how it is now carrying out this extensive operation in a cemetery in the north of Gaza to try to find Ran Gavili's body. It has information that it's acting on, and it is exhuming bodies in that cemetery and is trying to identify